Rabbit hole that is reality. It's about casting light on a whole spectrum of topics, because reality really is the ultimate reality show. We're here to show you how deep and fascinating it really can go. Our interests cover and touch many bases. We snapshot the stories that have caught our eye in the news, information that raises eyebrows and questions, and reading stories between the lines, looking at science, technologies, discoveries, and the environment, as well as at history, the unexplained, mysteries, strange tales, and the fortean. So whether you're here in search of knowledge or dipping in for entertainment, we're here as people just like you, passing our social commentary on what inspires and affects us. Welcome to Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, Episode 9, in association with UK Collapse. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kristian, and I shall be your host this evening. Rabbit Hole That Is Reality.co.uk is the place to point your browser. Every episode is available to play, stream, listen, watch, and download, and is also available on iTunes, and available you can add the RSS feed to the likes of Miro, Banshee, and many more podcast players, adding new episodes straight to your media library automatically as soon as they are available. You can also join us on YouTube. Click to subscribe. We really are endeavouring to make it as easy for you as possible to access the rabbit hole. Follow us also on social networks such as Twitter and Facebook, at Define Kristian on Twitter and at Sylvia Dragoon. Also, just give a search for Rabbit Hole There's Reality on Facebook, and I'm sure you will find the page just fine. So keep up tabs with what we've got going on here at the show. Now, I'll be honest, guys, it's taken a little bit longer to do this episode, between episodes 8 to 9, than it has the gap between the previous episodes, and mainly it's because we've been working on quite a few other video projects and been helping out some friends as well. The fruition of those, you can see some of them on our YouTube channel, so go and have a look. I put up some tutorials as well this past couple of weeks that have been requested, and also you can see some of the video projects that I've been involved with in editing. So yeah, where do we start off today? There's actually been a lot of stuff happening over the past couple of weeks. Now, I think two off the top of my head are going to be Syria and the G20, and we are going to focus on them today, although of course they are in the news, they are very prevalent, mainly because every news show out there right now, from every news site, also from RT to the BBC, from Guardian to Al Jazeera, has been talking about virtually every single angle about this story, really. I mean, earlier in the week, I'd created a thread on Facebook, linking a number of stories together that I was surprised that no one else had, in fact. It was about the fleets and the military that were involved in the Med and the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. And yeah, some really, really dangerous stuff happening over in that part of the world right now. But it's one of those places in the world, I mean, Syria is one of the most sensitive places in terms of volatility, in terms of history. I mean, even go back to mythology. You know, these places are literally the world's sacred sites. I find that to be a reason to try and keep the peace over there. You know, but clearly we have a world global agenda happening that seeks to use this to escalate a conflict or to bring around change, a change at a massive scale. And hopefully you guys have seen or you have heard at least the interview from, what's that guy's name, General Wesley Clark, that's kind of gone viral over the last week or so. In regards to the escalation of the conflict over there. In fact, if you haven't, let me just play this quick clip for you.
Because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Yeah, that's pretty damning stuff, actually, I have to say. And yeah, talking about 9/11, today is 9/11. Today is if you're following an American calendar anyway, I follow a British calendar. Today is the 11/9. Yeah, why is that? That's a very strange thing, isn't it? Yeah, the time is measured, of course. In ratio, it seems to go up. You got seconds, you have minutes, hours, days, months, years, decades, and so on. The American date system is really bizarre. It goes minutes, hours, months, days, years. It seems to skip back one. I never understand that when it comes to American dates. Okay, here's a bit of a mind fuck for you guys. A bit of a mind blower here. Right, so you have Syria has indeed been found to be in possession of chemical weapons. Syria's government, the Assad government, has indeed been found to have chemicals in their arsenal. Now, oddly enough, the UK actually sold them weapons, and they sold them these chemicals. And these two chemicals are sodium fluoride, potassium fluoride, fluorosilicic acid. So you may recognise these two chemical names. They are being described as being nerve gas chemicals in the articles written about Syria, and this is the reasons why we have to go and save them. Now, what I find really bizarre about that is, of course, potassium and sodium fluoride are the two chemicals they are seemed bound to put into our water. For instance, in America, 150 million people, who have a water supply, have that kind of stuff in their water. Yet this is being used as a justification to go in and cause a massive war, or to bring peace and democracy, through the front door with a machine gun, to stop them having chemical weapons. Yet these are the same two products they are putting in their very own water source. Well, what does this say about the fact that their toxicity? Well, okay, so I did say I wasn't going to stick with Syria, so let's move on. Let's move on slightly. Let's wind it back from another country. Let's wind it to right here, right now, with people you know. I guarantee you know someone who doesn't have a job right now. Now imagine this, right? Apparently, your friends and family. So if you don't have a job, rather, it's your friends and family, according to a report out today, that is stopping you finding a job. That's right. Your social network, your friends, your family, your support network are the ones in the way of the jobless finding work, according to a report out today. Can you believe that? The government also wants to make the jobless travel 90 minutes to go to a job centre to sign on. Also, how to solve the financial system. Yes, the invisible god hand of the market, the one that doesn't exist. They apparently are proposing 6 ways that the present structure can be redirected to try and save the day and to save the world economy. And there's some truly bizarre shit in there. And we're going to go through them in a minute. In the health section today, in our environment, Jeremy Hunt has issued to all hospitals must have 75% of their staff vaccinated in order to receive their accident and emergency funding budgets for next year. Yeah, I know what you're thinking right now. Technology story, here we go. This is a doctor who, over in China, gives an electronic eye to a young boy who had his eyes gouged out. Also talking about a group who call themselves the 12 Tribes. They are a fundamentalist group or network, really, of diaspora networks. And they claim in some pretty bizarre stuff. Basically, they have been revealed to be doing some rather nasty stuff to children. Rabbit Hole, that is reality. It's not just about depressing stories and telling you how bad the collapse is. We're also here to tell you about how good things are and how good technology can be. The BBC and Sega are working together to develop an experimental natural history park that's due to be opened very, very soon. We'll also talk to music producer and MC Johan Nelson, Mr. Minas, about his views on the music scene and society right now. We also go on a time-travelling trip with Peter Joseph, creator of the Zeitgeist movies, on the potential futures of where the culture and our culture is currently going. And also, we talk about deja vu in our fortean corner. We talk about the phenomenon known as deja vu with PIN, the Paranormal Investigation East Midlands team. And we also are going to throw in this bizarre story that is about an alien implant fail story. We're going to have a fail story on the show today. Alien implant fail story that came by my inbox this afternoon. All that coming up on Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, episode 9 today, and more. Yeah, so here we are. So family and friends are getting in the way of the jobless finding work, according to the report out today. The report is finalised and put into the public eye by the Policy Exchange. They are saying that in areas of the country, friends and relatives are in fact the negative influence that it drives people not to find a job. They're saying that social networks can be the barrier to find people who are motivated to find work. So what they're saying that people would rather hang out with their friends than go to work, I have to say it probably is right actually. People don't really want to go to work if you can hang out with your mates. However, you can't hang out with your mates, and do the social stuff if you haven't really got the money to go and do that with. And the truth is, when you have a job, when you have, when you are in an employment, often you find yourself with new friend circles, to enjoy things with. Are they also saying by introspect there that also having a job, and having a social life, in fact, is also a barrier to have more work at work? You know what I'm saying? Where the work wants you to work harder and harder and harder and harder, in this current paradigm. Are they also saying that if you've got friends, you're effectively not working hard enough? Of course, that really wasn't the basis of the argument. That's just me going to go around there. But yeah, apparently so. The Policy Exchange says that friends and relatives are a negative influence on those for work. However, what's come out of that is they have some radical proposals for what they want to solve this problem. And the radical proposals are, in fact, is they want people to travel 90 minutes, hour and a half, to go and sign on. So if you live effectively behind a job centre, that will not be your job centre. That will, in fact, will make the job centre the one you sign on at, the one across the other side of the city, on purpose. What's that? What? Does that make any kind of sense? Yeah, you want to save money, you want to save the carbon footprint, you want to stop people spending money, and of course they actually want us to spend money, to spend themselves out of recession. So they actually want us, so they're calling it the commute to claim plan. And it would boost, apparently, the jobless person's confidence to open up their chances of finding work further afield. He says that family signing also should be done when barriers to work are driven by family circumstances. So actually they want you to take your entire family to the job centre to sign on. I think in the words of the artist taxi driver, you what? You're having a laugh. But no, it's absolutely bizarre. And the TUC, the Executive Secretary General, basically he brings out some comments about this as well. Francis O'Grady, his name is. He just says it's just another call to get tough on the jobless. And it's true. The real problem here is the lack of jobs. The shortage of jobs. And the truth is, those jobs are being sent, to China. They're being sent to low-cost countries where there's no health system. The reason why the UK has such high, you have a specific job that has a specific skill set and requirement, is because we actually value the colleague over here. We value the employee, and we've taken through health and safety guidance. You do all the things, trade and law, that kind of thing. In countries like that, essentially, that isn't part of the equation. It doesn't need to be part of the equation. And of course, when you go over there, a lot of the companies, say a good example would say be Nike, for instance. Nike don't actually strictly have factories over in China and Bangladesh. They have, in the same way that we have agency staff. They'll hire a company to make them for them. So effectively, you've got companies making stuff, manufacturing. I'd say Jaguar, for instance, but over say in China, Jaguar, the company, effectively are hiring a local company and getting everyone to work on it for cheap as possible. And I'm not saying Jaguar do that. I'm just saying as an example. Obviously, you've got the manufacturing process and the construction and the making of clothes and the making of items and garments and trinkets and stuff. That's being made by third-party companies on agency fees, effectively for companies that based and they'll sell their stuff here. And unfortunately, the reason why the economy is struggling is because you're taking the jobs away from the people who will be buying the stuff. So the problem is that what they're creating, the fact that people are having to go sign on, people don't have a job, people don't feel they have a future. The youth unemployment in this country is at a skyrocketing level. It's because there is no jobs for them here. If the jobs were here, they would have the disposable income and the money to spend ourselves out of a recession because we would have money here. No, unfortunately, we're on a downward spiral in the sense that the only jobs currently here, are effectively customer service at best, and even they are getting driven out by, phone line services, automated services, and what else there might be, hotel booking in. I certainly think within a couple of years that's going to be all automated services as well. And what actually is there going to be for the humans? What do we need humans for, really? And that's unfortunately that's the part of the mechanism of what they're going towards. And they're not doing technological unemployment in the sense of for bettering humankind. They're keeping it and they're just driving the costs down in their system to drive people out of work. But unfortunately, they're just digging their own grave because there's no one to spend any money at those services. Therefore, that's why there's emerging markets, really, because they're the ones spending money over there, and we're not spending money here. Well, I personally see there's going to be an interesting shift in paradigm between like the East and the West, where currently in this country no one will have a job, and you have countries like China bailing us out in jobs. I mean, you certainly see them picking up the roads, you're picking up the businesses. They're buying lots of infrastructure here too. You know, the docks and stuff. I think what's going to happen, in my opinion, is that you're going to see a role reversal around the world. You certainly see their countries in the East, you know, profiting really well. You know, they're having good wealth. They're having essentially a middle class emerging. You know, those who are working to a point where they now have enough disposable income. They're buying the extra stuff. You know, we've certainly seen there's been a demand for iPhones in China. You know, little they know they're probably made down the road, you know, perhaps by one of their relatives. But you know, that comment aside. And then you see here in the West, we have nothing left. We'll have no manufacturing. We'll have no industry left. And we certainly won't have any money disposable income to buy it from. Will it be then that China effectively pays us slave wages because we have no jobs? That they'll set up cheap factories over here, or we'll be the ones working 16 and 18 hours for pittance? You know, is that how the world is going to flow next? You know, I certainly feel that that's actually how it might go. I mean, talking of the financial system, we're also seeing a move towards making our currency change from paper to be in a plastic-based format. Will that mean that those plastic-based credit card size 5, 10, 20 and £50 notes will effectively be RFID chipped? Can you imagine if actually you're walking past one of those new Wi-Fi enabled bins, and then obviously they're scanning and knowing exactly how much money you've got in your wallet just by the feedback information that's coming back and forth. But really what the story I want to bring on to that is that they are looking forward to having that by 2016. You're having a plastic currency in place and not on printed paper. And I mean, there's 6 other theories that are flowing around at the moment. One of the ones that I posted up on our Facebook page today is the proposal that they want to solve the financial crisis by allowing corporations to create and even issue their own currency, printing their own money effectively. And you know, I went like, eh? Companies printing their own money. That kind of reminds me of like back in the 18th century when mine bosses issued their own currency. The stipulation was that they could only spend it in the mine-owned shop. You know, all the money went flowed back into the same company. You know, there's over in the US, I do know I was listening to Red House Radio, an interview not too long ago, in fact, and one of the discussions on there was talking about how in the US, McDonald's actually have an agreement with JP Morgan, in fact, and if you work for McDonald's, you can only have a JP Morgan owned bank account that is issued by McDonald's, and the money that comes in, what McDonald's will pay you can only be paid into that type of account. What that means is that you also then have to pay a monthly fee to have that bank account. So I think it's like $20, $30. So in order to get paid from McDonald's, you have to have a certain bank account given to you by the company and a charge for you. So therefore, you're literally having to work perhaps, I don't know, a good 8 of those hours just to make sure you have an account of where you can access your money. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, so yeah, McDonald's. Yeah, they're obviously they're quite keen to have a decentralized money system that they can offer. The other alternatives, in fact, you know, are quite fascinating stuff. You're seeing, I mean, Google Glass, for instance, Google Glass and Apple iWatch were on the rise of having like wearable computers. So literally, you could literally wave your device in front of a scanning panel, and it would transfer money from the pocket, effectively, the digital pocket, on your device to what it is you've bought. And that always reminds me of the film In Time. I don't know if you've ever seen that with Justin Timberlake. A really good film, in fact, where on your wrist you have the amount of time you have left of life, and you literally can transfer time between each other. Really, really interesting concept there. But going back to the money systems, I mean, or the different variety of cash systems there can be. I mean, there's a big thing around cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, those kind of things that are kind of thriving in the internet. I mean, they've kind of thrived because they were decentralized money systems that were people were using their computers to generate their money. I mean, I have to say, Bitcoin is something I've looked at quite a bit. I never actually have bought into yet, but I think it's a really interesting concept. Although, of course, the banks will try and shut down Bitcoin as fast as they can, if anything like the last recent year is anything to go by. Also, you have like cloud cash, which is very similar to the wearable stuff, although the idea is that it'll be an app on your phone. So obviously you'd wave your app somewhere, and your money and financial transactions will be literally dealt with by your smartphone. But it is true that a lot of people dedicate their entire lives now choosing their smartphone. You see them on the bus, on the tram, or out on the day, or you go shopping. You'll see someone sitting there with an iPad, or they've got their smartphone out, and they're literally doing their transaction banking, and they're going online, they're doing Facebook, they're doing all the transactions and stuff. I kind of get that, but do you want that to be the only way that you have money? No, I don't know. The other alternatives are text money, which is a really big thing that's taken off over in Africa. I mean, you do see it quite a lot. You know, where you see like money campaigns where it's like send us a text and £3 will come off your bill, or send us a text and you can donate money, that kind of way. Well, that similar system works really well, where you can transfer money literally by text to each other, and where transferring, settling debts and simple transactions without too much hassle. You send £3 and £5, and basically you then have the money. And the other one they're proposing is put forth by John Maynard Keynes, and that should make you tense up in the buttocks certainly. Intensely, the UN and him have suggested that we have a one world currency. And basically they're saying this because the internet, increased travel, has led to the world being a global village. So we may see the same cash being transacted from everywhere from Sydney to Swansea, to Manchester, to Dubai. But then what you have to consider is that it would be one company, one organisation, one corporation producing all of the world's money. That would mean that company has unprecedented power and control over everything and everyone. And that is a very dangerous precedent to set. The world in its current state, at virtually every level, has a degree of corruption within it. I mean, the system itself is designed that way. There's this greed and corruption at virtually every level. But to acknowledge and move forth into a system where absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's what that would create, and that is a very, very dangerous place to be. Well, the NHS is now in quite a crippled state. A lot of it has been sold off to private corporations and private organisations, and they're literally having to effectively rent their own wards back, renting medication, renting staff back into it. And we all know that actually that costs more money. And obviously, as more and more parts of the NHS are being sold off, that's certainly going to be more of the case as we move forward into the future. But let's take a look at this story here. Jeremy Hunt, our Health Secretary. All-round good guy, shall we say? Well, now, as part of his ambitious plan to deal with the vulnerable people over the winter period, where, of course, more people get the flu, understandably, obviously as our immune systems deal with the cold, obviously the onset. He said that NHS trusts must ensure that 75% of their staff have been vaccinated against the flu in order to gain access to the accident and emergency funds for next year. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that as a threat, and I read that as blackmail, effectively. If you do not have 75% of your staff vaccinated, you will not receive any accident and emergency funds for the period of 2014. Now, what kind of dangerous precedent is that setting? Around 750,000 people every year attend their GPs with flu-like symptoms, and around 27,000 of those are then sent to hospital. Now, the Health Secretary says that its support being put into place. It's entirely possible. Now, it should be noted that the Shadow Health Secretary, Andy Burnham, he says his plans are half-baked. On your watch, we will have the first summer of accident and emergency crises in living memory of the NHS. Now, sticking with the theme of hospitals, we're going to go half a world away. We're going to go over to China, running to Hong Kong, where we have a story of a Chinese boy who's only 6 years old. Unfortunately, he had a rather tragic encounter, shall we say, with his own auntie, who gouged out his eyes for reasons unknown. His auntie has since committed suicide. A doctor basically heard the story of the young boy's plight. That he is actually now completely blind. He offered the operation for free. The idea of the way it will work is that he's been given implants. Actually, the implants were actually installed yesterday into the boy, and he will have prosthetic eyes that will actually look and move like normal eyes, but unfortunately they do not restore the vision. But they actually have navigation sensors that actually will allow him to get around the places that he's familiar with. So it's a bold new vision and a bold new step. You're also on a humanitarian level as well. We hear all kinds of terrible stories coming out of China, you know, how authoritarian they are and what their situation's like. One of the reasons that drew me to this, in fact, it shows there really is a human side, even in places where we in the West have demonised them. Now, it's no secret I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to technology and new innovations, that kind of thing. Yeah, things that actually inspire us. And this I thought was really, really cool. This is a collaboration between the BBC and Sega, the video game giant, and they've developed effectively an experimental natural history theme park. This is absolutely brilliant. Now, it's over in Japan. It's being called the Orbi, and it's like a high-tech experimental, purpose-built natural history attraction. It's going to be in Yokohama. It's been like 4 years in the making, and it's like a collaboration between BBC Worldwide and Sega, as you know. And what's going to be there? It's literally a 2-story high screen, 40 meters wide. It's bigger than anything like IMAX or whatever. On the idea is you'll have rooms that kind of simulate Arctic condition, and they'll be showing like it feels like to be in different regions of the world. Literally, it's going to be like a mixture of attraction parks, technology mixed in with the BBC's huge nature footage, but actually showing like massive what do they call it? Frozen planet, planet Earth. What they've obviously done, been met with critical acclaim like David Attenborough. But obviously on a screen that size, on an environment, that's going to be really, really cool to go and see and go and experience. Unfortunately, it's over in Japan, and I really hope they do something like that over here as well. I think that draws us to a nice, sensible moment for thought there. There's lots of stuff, lots of information going off there. So let's take a break, sit back, enjoy some music, and we'll come back on the other side of the break. We're going to be talking to Johan Nelson, Mr. Minas, music producer and MC, about society and music. And we're also going to be talking to the PIEM Paranormal Investigations East Midlands team regarding the strange phenomenon known as deja vu. It's likely you may have experienced it yourself, so we're going to have a bit of a discussion there. I actually recorded this just a couple of days ago. Stay tuned to the other side of Rabbit Hole Edge Reality. This is Kristian Lander. This is episode 9. See you, and we shall meet again on the other side.
You can't shoot from the hip and look for solutions if you have not learned who's doing this to us, how they're doing this to us, and the documents that tell us how they are doing this to us.
You're deaf?
Exactly. Now, shall we get down to business? Time of departure is midnight tonight. I trust that will suit you. We do listen to appeals, but frankly, when there's very little here in the way of an extenuating circumstance. There are 3 major categories of appeals. One is hardship cases. Now, do you have a wife or family who might suffer beyond a reasonable point your demise? The second category is priority cases, statesmen, scientists, men on the verge of discoveries. I don't think you're qualified here either. Unfinished business of a major nature. Well, you don't have any unfinished business.
The rabbit hole that is reality. Across the spectrum of topical talk, news that raises an eyebrow, science, technology, the environment, mysteries, strange tales, and the fortean, that is both informative and entertaining. As you spread our wings and catch our stride, you can find us now on the web, rabbitholethatisreality.co.uk, where you can listen, download, and watch all the episodes produced so far. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/rabbitholethatisreality, or follow the presenters on Twitter at DefineChristian and at Sylvia Dragoon for commentary, insight, and conversation. This is the rabbit hole that is reality. Thank you for joining us here on the other side. My name is Kristian, and this is the rabbit hole that is reality, episode 9. On this half of the break, we're going to be talking to Johan Nelson, a music producer and MC, and also in discussion, we're going to be talking about Deja Vu with Paranormal Investigations East Midlands Team PIEM, and plus much more besides. So let's just kick it straight into an interview right now with Johan Nelson.
Hi, yes, my name's Johan Nelson. I'm a young music producer, and I'd like to say a lover of humanity as well. I'd say humanitarian, but you know, labels have stigma attached to them already.
It's a very good point there, is that you're talking about stigmatism, and in terms of what words get misconstrued the wrong way. So when you mean one thing, often your personal interpretation, it can mean something else, and someone else's interpretation is something completely different.
That's it.
And I guess
hence why the Bible is misunderstood in so many ways.
So well, there was like 80,000 different translations, and they all contradict each other.
That's it.
So you obviously coming out from a very music producer's point of view.
Yes.
So we talk about the stuff that's happening in the world that we see on a daily basis. Now, if say you talk about our day-to-day life, you know, what we see, what do you think is affecting people?
On an economic level, the basics are the system is not set up for the normal, average, everyday person to be able to even just have the basic needs met. It's not set up for that. It appears to be set up for that, but it's not set up for that at all. It's set up to, you know, line the pockets of people that are already rich.
What do you think of the term like the rat race? You know, where
exactly that. It's exactly that, and then you've got the Pied Pipers up there leading everybody. I tell you an analogy that I like is, it's almost like an evil shepherd leading all the sheep to the wolves so that the wolves can eat. If that makes sense.
To me, and I hear a phrase that I hear quite often, which is the devil's carriage is drawn by good people.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's an old quote that I like, and the name escapes me of who said it. It says, "Evil prospers when good men do nothing."
That's exactly right.
And it's been remixed and rehashed a load of times.
But I think the message is there, it resonates with a lot of people, because everyone, regardless of your point of view, is what your social economic status is, or whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're homeless, the message resonates because it's the same thing.
It is. And like I said to you, I mean, when just starting this conversation, our basic needs are not being met by society or let's call it a governance that is meant to be there for our benefit. When you look at the word government, what it means, and economics, when you actually look at what is happening with those two things in society now, they're not fulfilling what their definition is. Economics means to economize. To me, government and economy, they're two names that are bandied about society. We hear it on the news all the time. Even me and you, when we're having conversations, we use these words. However, our economy does not economize, and our government does not actually fulfill its responsibility as a government, does it? I mean, when you grow up, you have a certain view of government, and you think the government is there to keep you safe, to government to keep the country organised and everything, but it's not. Because why are there so many... These are the questions I ask myself. Why are there so many social problems? Why are there so many economic problems if they're doing their job? And who watches the watchers?
Well, I think maybe the question should be who profits?
There you go. It's clear that that's right. Okay, if all I can say is in history, they continue these systems that do not work for years and years and years until there's a revolution or a war or something, and then something changes, and then everybody's happy with that for a certain time, but then what it boils down to is money again. And then because the whole system is based on money, you and I both know that money is a commodity that we don't really need. We don't actually need money to survive.
No.
There are plenty of species on this planet that have survived for millennia without money.
That's right.
So why are we the only ones that pay to live on this planet? I don't get it. You know, and I really do think the saying "born free" doesn't exist anymore. You're not born free.
No, you're born into a system.
You're born into a system, and you know, Matrix springs to mind. You know, Equilibrium springs to mind. Things like that, and I just think to myself, you've got to go with what is best for humanity. We need to get to a system where the monetary system is removed, and we move in a system where everybody's needs are met, and we start with what the human need is first. I mean, not the needs of what the telly tells you what you need. I mean, your nutrition, you know, your dietary, love, emotional stimulation, recreational stimulation. What are all the things that humans need to live a fulfilling? Yeah, do you know what I mean? The basics, knowledge. That's what helps us evolve. You don't actually need a new pair of Nike Air Max, really. No, you just need something to cover your feet, really. You don't actually need a Ralph Lauren shirt. What you need is something to cover your back. Do you know what I mean? If you live in a cold climate. Do you know what I mean?
I do exactly.
And what I'm saying is that people are so far removed from reality. That is what I'm trying to say is, for me, it's not a case of.
But so let's go back. I guess when I'm listening to your music, I think your music is quite inspirational in the sense that it's not your typical I'm going out getting drunk, hanging out in the club. You know, your typical R&B hip hop. I know that's your style. The messages usually from that genre are, you know, I'm going out getting drunk, getting laid, and enjoying a good time. You can have that, but ultimately there needs to be a recompense for that. In regards to what is grassroots, what is people coming together, what is a good method, what is a good message. Yeah, because there is nothing wrong with going out, having a good time, and enjoying yourself. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. The problems come from being too drunk. The problems come from going out too much. The problem comes from overindulgence. The problems come from, you know, I mean, let's go really deep in the nitty-gritty. People getting drunk and like males getting drunk and the way that they are towards females, stuff like that. All that constantly going on in society does create, you know, women who have barriers against men because of one experience with a drunken man. Do you know what I mean? And that in itself is nature being affected by external factors that are again to do with, you know, that guy's probably only gone out and got drunk because he's had such a shit week at work. Do you know what I mean? He's, you know, little things, and I think about these things, how they spiral into things that affect the whole of society. Absolutely. And so for me, when I do my music, I try to spin a very real version of what is happening. You won't catch me glorifying, you know, going out and drinking. You will hear me talking about it. You will hear me talking about it in the club. But it's like, it's not the same. If you listen to the lyrics and how it's made up, you will see that it's not the same content as that person over there. Yeah, I can't think of an artist off the top of my head. But essentially, that is what music is. It's a very personal thing. I mean, I'm no longer trying to be a number one artist. I just make music because I love music, all sorts of music. I love to hear when somebody comes up with a new concept or a new spin or a new way of looking at things. I love that. And that's what I try to put into my music, you know. So when you're writing a song, you have to spend a lot of time
doing your research and your background, and I look at things like what we're talking about now, and I think to myself, how can I make that
message,
entertaining music delivered in a message? Musically, I think it's time that people started going back to actually saying what is going on, rather than talking about the symptoms. We need to start talking about the roots of the problem. I don't know if you listen to Bob Marley, he really does encapsulate everything that I'm talking about in terms of how artists should be looked. I don't know, not just Bob Marley, other people that have wrote amazing songs about the period of time that they've lived in. Essentially, yeah, it is. And I just don't think that musicians are being the news reporters that they used to be. I think
that's actually a really good way of putting it, actually.
They're just not. They used to be. You used to listen to music to really empathise and feel like someone would write a song and me, you, and my mum would understand what they're talking about, because they're talking about something that's going on.
I think a really good way
right
to
now.
I would certainly say with the 80s, with Thatcherism the way it was,
Big
there's lots of
time.
songs talking about desolate, like Ghost Town, all those songs that really encapsulate kind of ska, kind of the emotion of the people. And you kind of know the time because of the kind of music that it was.
Exactly. And what I'm saying is, there is a huge discrepancy in the 2000s. There's no...
That's a good mirror against all types of different music. You talked about how in the 2000s there was a massive change in the vibe of music. You think about the change there was, say, in the food production. What my thought was there is that we literally went from having allotments and getting the food from like the greengrocers to literally all being in supermarkets, all processed. And music.
And how they did it was they took the seeds off the shelf. You didn't stop wanting an allotment. What happened was they took the seeds off the shelf and they make it harder for you to come across these things, and harder for, because I remember at times we used to have, even just downstairs, we used to have a section where you could basically start your own little allotment in your garden.
Absolutely. There was a time when that's important.
Now, they do not want you making stuff that hasn't got these chemicals and hasn't been through a certain process. They don't want you doing that.
My thought really was in regards to like meat processing as well. It went from a time where the image is that it's pigs and cows in the field, but no, actually they're not. They're in massive factories, all strapped up to machines.
Yes, horrible.
Music then, I saw that organic process there, where for a while it was organic, it was about artists, and now of course it's manufactured, it's processed.
It is, it's horrible. And I feel that the artists that still stay true to that realism, there's two ways. They're either used and marketed, and when one of their shows is on, they're advertising this to you, advertising that to you, or they're shunned by the record labels and they're like, no, that's too real, keep it down there. And it does make me think. I don't want people to be like, oh, he's talking about Illuminati or whatever. I'm not bothered about that. What I'm saying is, really, when you look at the situation, there must have been some plan in place to utilise music, food, and all these things to keep the people, the powers that be at the top. There must have been some plan, because all these revenue streams are going back to the same sources. And this is what people are not realising. So I'm saying, so there must have been some plan. Music is supposed to be a report of what is going on at the time. That's what music's supposed to be. So if you take the 2000s, what does it says to you? Manufactured, organised. To me, whoever's making this plan at the top has got it. They've got it to a T now. It's manufactured, it's organised, they've worked out what people want to hear, how they want to hear it. They've worked out down to the frequencies and the notes which affect people, and they've got it down to exact science, and that is why things are manufactured and churned out in the same similar formats.
They are. They're exactly the same format.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
So if you take the 80s as a representation of what's going on, then the 90s as a representation of what's going on, and then the 2000s, well, that to me seems
I think a lot of people don't even remember any music that came out last year.
No.
Because it all kind of said, there was a few examples, a few tracks, whatever.
Yeah.
But the principle is they were marketed in a certain way, in a certain fashion, to order, to manufacture.
It would be nice for people to hear logical, healthy knowledge, and for them to be able to act on it. But a lot of it comes from just simply people stay quiet and don't do anything because they do not know how to action how they're feeling and how their thought stream is. Even I, to a certain extent, I sit back and think, well, where do you start?
Yeah.
And I do believe that giving people knowledge is where you start, but it's what people do with that knowledge, and that's why these people that make these plans are so good, because they've got it to a place where people are so dumbed down and so caught up in their life that they don't realise that it could be any different.
That's exactly right.
And that is the key to this whole thing. We get the answer to that, we've cracked it.
So there we have it. That was my conversation last week with Johan Nelson as music producer Mr. Midas. Certainly check him out in the world of Facebook and Twitter. And also out this week is actually the newest episode of Cultural Decline, the series made by the Zeitgeist movie maker and de facto founder of the Zeitgeist movement, Peter Joseph. And the main crux and review of his episode really is about the fork in the road and where we're at right now. And in fact, the way I think about it, we've probably gone past the signboard. You know, we really have to turn and go across off-road to get to the other way. And I mean, one direction, you know, is to push this, push for the culture and decline that we're going down. You know, where we have inefficiency, a scarcity-driven model that is driving the world to a bit of ruin. How I think about it, you know, we have an infinite growth, finite resources, you know, compounded with like extreme unemployment. Every country is virtually bankrupt to each other. You have energy sources currently being destabilized, industrial population. You know, you're driving towards disease, shortages, water wars, you know, resource wars. But then the other direction, you know, the way where you can have efficiency, safety, have a technologically driven society that's not being driven by the narrow pursuit of personal gain and money. You know, where we have a culture worldwide that is sharing resources, technology, ideas, stabilizing the class warfare system, where the scarcity model simply just could not do that. I mean, application of ephemeralization, which is like the social science, the ability to do more with less and less and less. And, yeah, that's not as an oxymoron as you might think. You're understanding where we are today, you know, we are in the zeitgeist of where we are right now. And one thing that particularly resonated with me in this episode actually is the closing statement, you know, that, I mean, the culture in decline is not, or was not, a satirical view of modern life, but it's his frustrated view that we have the capacity and the capability to not be a culture in decline, and that we can be agents of a culture in ascent. And I found that to be quite an important statement. I really hope you check it out. That's Culture in Decline. That's available on YouTube right now by Peter Joseph. I highly recommend you check it out. And, you know, where we are at the fortean corner, in all fairness, really, the fortean corner is probably the wrong word for it, really. It's almost like it should be. Let's see what else is out there. What inspires us? What are the mysteries? What makes our world so exciting? And the discussion we have this week is actually with Paranormal Investigations East Midlands, the PIEM team, joined by sion-marc and Mark Birch, and we have the discussion really. It evolves, you know, it went through many different subjects, but really the basis and the crux of the beginning of the story actually was about deja vu. And they moved into time slips, to past lives, and all the kind of things that link those similar subjects together. with members of the Pioneer team. So yeah, here we are. Deja vu. The idea of being done again.
Yeah, deja vu. Interesting one.
Yeah, your views. What do you think?
It's maybe you remembering a dream where the person or whatever has been on your mind, and you've dreamt a conversation you've had with them, and then you've had this conversation because subconsciously it's there, and you've probably initiated it.
Well, so like you were dreaming of a future event. Say, first you were going to meet your friend.
Yeah.
So you, in your dream, you've been thinking about meeting your friend, so therefore you've run through a number of scenarios in a dream.
Where you've met your friend, and
the topics that you're going to have a discussion. It happens to be perhaps when you meet them, the conversation is based on what your thought processes were. Therefore, it appears to be similar.
It feels like it's deja vu. It feels like you've been there and done that. The harder ones to explain are ones where it's more visual than a conversation, if this makes sense. Just bear with me, because I've certainly had deja vu before where I've been somewhere and gone, I've been here a couple of weeks ago and it's the first time I've been to this place. I possibly wasn't at the time even thinking about a trip to
X place.
Yeah. That becomes harder to explain as a dream. Unless you've seen something on I don't know, a picture or on the telly or someone mentioned this place. But I think it's all linked to subconscious. Because, as I said last night, we don't know how the brain works completely. We certainly don't use our entire brain. And again, as I said, I don't remember my dreams. So I can't say that a conversation I had with a friend that I've had this. I can't say that's not a dream that I've had. I've initiated this conversation because subconsciously my brain is going, oh, this is what you should be doing. I think deja vu is a very difficult thing to define because we don't know what causes it.
So we're talking about, say...
It's very subjective as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
How do you tell someone about how you felt or what happened at a deja vu? All you can say is, well, I had deja vu, I'm sure I've done this before. Well, no, and that's basically all you can do.
Well, I have said before to someone, we've had this conversation, and they've looked at me blankly and gone, no, we haven't. Now, if I'm adamant I've had a conversation with someone, there has to be a reason for that.
Yeah. But how does that become a phenomenon you can investigate? Because it's so subjective, you can't.
And it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that I could wake up tomorrow and go, ooh, deja vu about, I don't know, my cat wanting to get out. It's a very, very difficult area and a difficult subject to investigate because it's to do with your brain. And until we understand how the brain works completely, which is going to be a long time, you can't answer the question of what causes deja vu.
What do you do with it? If someone tells you how an experience of deja vu, you can listen to them, you can, be sympathetic, and that's all you can do with it. It's allegorical. You use them.
Yeah.
Because I guess there's no time scale to it. You don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. You can't put someone in a lab and go, have deja vu in about 10 minutes' time.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, exactly. Short of finding what part of the brain happens when someone just happens to be deja vu, they just happen to be rigged up to an EEG meter at the time, you've got no way, and then trying to stimulate that same part of the brain and try and create deja vu, there's no way you can do it. And could that be just an electrical impulse, or is it something else? Is it this non-locality of information, that maybe sometimes in some environments you pick up information that isn't yours, but is just out there in some gestalt place where we all draw information from. So you've not been there in yourself, but the information of you being there has been there. Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
You were talking to me, so I was out here yesterday, and obviously deja vu came in the conversation slightly. Deja vu might be a premonition. That was one thing you were...
Yeah, I mean, I've not had any classic experience of deja vu, but I've had an experience where at the time I heard an audible voice tell me something when I was dropping off, so probably in hypnagogic state. And later on an event happened, and then I thought, hang on a minute, this isn't what I thought it was at the time, this is actually probably more of a premonition. But the feeling at that time, I guess, is similar to the feeling when someone has that deja vu, in that she had that issue at home with what she thought was a ghost, and she was quite anxious about it and stuff like that. She was asleep on the sofa with Tate, right? And I'd been up watching Tate most of the night, so I was fucking knackered, right? And I was sat on the floor and like nodding like you do. So they're asleep and I'm starting to nod, and it's probably about 7 o'clock at night, yeah? TV's on. So I get up and turn, was the TV on or was it off? It was on. Anyway, so I'm sat there nodding, and I must have been in that state with hypnagogic, yeah?
Yeah.
And I heard this woman's voice, as clear as fucking day, right, say, I'm so sorry. But like sad, I'm so sorry. And I said to Tracy when she woke up, but like 3 weeks later when we split up, I think it was a premonition. I think it, because looking back on it, it was her fucking voice, but she was asleep with Tate. So I think I was picking up on an event that was going to happen when we split up, and she said to me, I'm so sorry. And I went, right.
That's when it clicked, right?
That's when it clicked. So, yeah, it could be suggestion and me relating it back to that. Somehow in my hypnagogic state, I was foreseeing something that was going to happen before it happened. And that freaked me out. Is it deja vu? It was at the fucking time afterwards.
Well, this is
but it wasn't. It was almost like a premonition. I mean, not a premonition. I didn't see anything, but I just clearly heard a woman's voice say, I'm so sorry.
But the definition of deja vu is...
It's defined as it literally means it's French as in done before.
Yeah.
So
Yours wouldn't have been deja vu.
I don't think it's deja vu. I think it was like
Yours
a premonition.
was a premonition.
But I didn't see anything. It's like an audio premonition.
There's no reason for
Fucking
that
bizarre.
not to happen.
Very bizarre.
But, I mean, you tend to have deja vu with an experience or a conversation where you have
freaked
it.
you out, because this time I know it wasn't deja vu, but it was very similar. I sat on the bus in the morning on 44. The bus was at the top of King Street.
Yeah.
I get on it, the bus engine's running. I looked down at I think I was looking down at my phone. I felt the bus pull off. I was still looking at my phone, doing some stuff.
Yeah.
I looked up at my phone, and I was back to where I started. And I was like, and I felt the fucking weirdest feeling. I was like, is that fucking deja vu? I felt the bus move. I knew we were moving, but we were back here again. And what had happened is the bus had gone around in the square and had gone back up. Because I was looking at my phone, I missed the whole event. So I thought it was fucking proper deja vu, and it was the weirdest fucking feeling. But I think what had happened was the bus had actually gone around a circle.
But why could it do that?
Because at the time when they were working on the road, sometimes the buses can't get down from the top. So the ones at the bottom will go onto Queen Street and back around to let the other bus go, and then it'll come back around again. But it was the oddest feeling. So I can imagine if someone's had a proper deja vu, it must be really fucking weird. Because afterwards I was able to convince myself actually it was theirs.
But no, I mean, I have had that. I've definitely had deja vu.
I don't think I've had it properly.
Definitely. And I think I might have had a little bit of deja vu this weekend. Because I was having a conversation with Bex that I'm sure I've had with her before. Define an event.
So I always find it's things like, phrases or words. Always find it's a recognition of things that kind of happened before, and that's why I say I have it perhaps maybe once or twice a month, maybe on average.
Yeah.
And it tends to be things like it's usually a conversation, or it's things that have happened, or it'll be a certain sequence of where I'm looking.
Yeah.
And you realise that you've looked this way before, and you realise that I feel something, or I touch something, or I pick something up, and that triggers it. And it's like, wait a minute, what I remember is this happening. I can remember this sequence of events, so I'm picking this up. And I suddenly never picked this up before, because I only just got it.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, deja vu. It's your brain doing weird shit.
Is it, or is it some kind of fucking past life thing?
But no, it can't be a past life if I'm remembering a conversation I've had with someone.
Okay, let me give you a scenario. That woman that's famous way back in the 80s, I think she's English, but she went over to Ireland and she had a whole life with a whole family.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
when she walks into that house and she remembers, oh, yeah, we need to turn down this street and do this, and that is like deja vu. But in her case, it's not deja vu.
She had
been there before. She had done all that stuff, but that's because it was a past life. So it's a deja vu that we have in little snippets, maybe a bigger part of a past life, and we're just getting the snippets.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, for example, the deja vu that I think I possibly had yesterday with Bex, I remember having a conversation with Bex. So that can't be a past life, because it was in the same setting.
Right, okay.
In her house,
Yeah.
how we were, her with her black hair.
See, what I tend to notice is
So
you notice the subtleties when you know it's deja vu, okay? Because you find yourself going, okay, I'm holding this cup, I've seen this, I'm looking at that, and that's what you're remembering.
yeah,
You're remembering that you did this whole sequence before.
So it's not just a memory; it's kinetic. I picked up this phone. This tea. This is weird. I remember having this, and this happened, and it's almost like you foreshadowed yourself. But I think that was in my case. I think that was just some kind of premonition rather than it being deja vu. I don't think I've really had deja vu as a classical sense.
but I think if you look at a premonition and deja vu, you can kind of link them as well.
Yeah, but they're always linked afterwards, so there's always the risk that you're making connections that weren't there. I mean, I could be doing that in this situation without going into the specifics of it.
Well,
I
yeah,
could be looking back in hindsight and making it fit.
that particular.
Yeah. So I don't know.
scenario, yeah.
But as far as deja vu is concerned, I think it's too subjective to really have any other opinion than just to hear cases of them and go, oh, that's interesting, it's weird, we don't know what it is. Is it some fluke of time? Is it a remembered dream from the subconscious? Is it collecting information from a Gestalt source outside? Who knows? We're never going to know, are we?
Well, no, it's always going to be one of those things that people just go, oh, that's deja vu. And
The fact that there's not even an English word for it.
Yeah.
yeah, quite.
Or the word they have fits. So there's no need to have an English word
Yeah.
for it. I don't know. It's an interesting phenomenon.
But when the event triggers, where you look or what you see or what you smell, what you taste, is the sequence. That is being remembered as it's happening. And I always find that's really strange, because if you are remembering that you've had deja vu, therefore it's actually happened twice,
Yeah.
not just once. Because you're remembering that you've said you've had deja vu, and that often is one of the triggers. You know, and then you start looking around and going, okay, so where am I at this position in time? What am I looking at? Where am I going? Let's get my rational position here, and then it will probably fade off after 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you can have almost a conversation where you know the person you spoke to is talking to you about something that could not possibly have been the case, that ever happened before. You've met someone new, or it's so a new sign's gone up, and that's what you're talking about. And all of a sudden it's a case of, wasn't it a conversation I've had before? It cannot have happened before, because this is new information. But that's what, and then you go, well, that's what you remember. Well, it can't have been new because this has just been here. Yeah. And I find that to be absolutely mind-boggling when I think about it.
Certainly that side of it really is, because you can't, as I say, you can't always explain. Well, you can't explain deja vu, full stop. You can offer possibilities. As I say, I firmly believe that in my experiences of deja vu, it's likely a subconscious thing, because I've gone to see someone I've been thinking about, and possibly when I've maybe, as I said, dreamt about it, we've had a conversation, and because I don't remember the dream in the morning, and I started the conversation, I've done this conversation. But if it's something like we discuss, I don't know, the black bicycle out of my window here, and Sean goes, we've had that discussion, and that bike's only been there today, that becomes then, what? How have we had that conversation when that's the first time it's been there?
Yeah, that is exactly,
yeah.
And that becomes the real, how is this possible?
Yeah. So it defines the timeline,
Yeah,
isn't it?
because unless Sean has had a dream of coming to see me and there's a black bicycle outside, which seems really kind of out there, then there's something else going on. Whether he's had a time slip forward, shall we say, at some point, and seen through his own eyes coming here and seeing the bicycle and then discussing it with me, and then it's happened, who knows?
There are some interesting things with, this is similar phenomena to deja vu that fascinates me is the phenomenon of the Vardiger. Vardiger is a Scandinavian word which means go. It's gone before or go before, and these are situations where an individual will go somewhere, and the person will greet them like they've already met them. And say, oh yeah, you were here last week. You came and bought such and such, and you ordered such and such, and the guy's like, I've never been here before. I've been planning to come here, but I've never been. You know, and there's a very common phenomena. There's a case in a Norwegian guy who actually went to somewhere like Indonesia to buy carpets or wooden products or something, I can't remember now. And he'd been planning this visit for a few months. He'd been emailing backwards and forwards some contacts over there. He gets over there and he walks into the shop. He'd never been in before. The guy in the shop says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Such and Such. How you doing? Yeah, we've got the order you wanted already done." And the guy's, "Well, I've never been here. I've never ordered anything." And these people will swear that these individuals have been into the shop, placed their orders, have been there 3 or 4 times and had conversations. And it's almost like a tulpa where something has gone before, like a thought form to do stuff. And there's been several cases of this, and again, it's like some kind of deja vu, only the witness this time is witnessing an event and an image, rather than it just being something in someone's mind. So that's an interesting thing. The Vardiger is very interesting in those. Again, because it seems to be some kind of play with time.
But again, you could possibly tie in time slips to deja vu, like we discussed last night about that couple that found this really cute.
Yeah, it's from Michael Aspel. He used to have a show back in the really early 90s called Strange But True. Who knows why there was a question mark at the end of that.
They're trying to be enigmatic, yeah.
And the particular case is what's quite a famous one where a couple and their friend, they go to France and they stop at a bed and breakfast for the night, and they have breakfast, they have supper, they go to bed, they have breakfast in the morning. They particularly reference 2 policemen who come in wearing really old clothes, and when it comes to paying in the morning, they only pay 16 francs, which is that they. I don't know. Even despite the fact that they have, well, to them, they obviously gave the money over 16 francs, and they went home. They tried to find it on the way back home. They didn't see it, but they came back the year after to try and find the same place, and the only building they found was a derelict old building, or hadn't been occupied since the end of World War II.
It's amazing. I love that case. But again, it's some issue with. There seems to be some plays with time. Time seems to be something that's not, etched in stone. That's planned. That somehow there are these little freaks that happen. That the time slips that people witness. There's been cases in England where people have gone to. One case I remember actually, someone was actually boating on a lake, and they were crossing the lake on a boat, and then they heard some noise, and then walking past there was a whole line of Roman soldiers, completely out of the blue. So where do these things come from? How does it happen? It's bizarre, but they do, and it's not that rare a situation.
No. But of course, York has quite a famous one with the Roman legion as well.
Sure, the guy in the basement doing the...
the plumber, wasn't he? Apprentice plumber. What his name was, Robert, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And he was doing some plumbing down there, or he was laying something down, and then he saw a horseman. Horseman went through a wall. Then a guardsman came along wearing Roman regalia and armour, followed by a number of Roman soldiers.
It was like a procession, wasn't it? Through the wall.
Yeah.
But only waist high or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Only like just above the knees. There wasn't until I think it was like the mid-90s, or probably the early 2000s, they excavated the building, and further indeed was the Roman road, which is the reason why the story got brought back up again. This is a case of, because that case actually was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And this validates the fact that the height that he would have seen them at actually was the height of the Roman road.
The old road, yeah. It's amazing, yeah. There's a lot, again, that we just don't know, about this field.
What interests me is, what's the trigger? If we can cause the trigger to happen, you can essentially control it.
Is it something as random as just being in the right place at the right time? Is it something environmental that stores the image that some people walk into and are sensitive enough to trigger that image? Is it down on a personal level? Is it environmental? Is it that the conditions are just right in the environment that it triggers it? Again, it's one of those fascinating things, but you're never really going to know. And even if it happened to you, you wouldn't know why. Interesting. I mean, there was that one case of a guy, I'm sure it was an English couple that actually went to New York, and I think the lady's waiting on the road in the car, the gent goes down the subway, and doesn't come out the other side, especially if gone to the bathroom or something, and it's like half an hour, and he's down there. Where he is, it's a completely different world. It's all futuristic, it's all this, that and the other, and he's bizarre, and he basically doesn't know what to do. He sees someone come up and talk to him, and it's a gent, and the gent talks to him, he has this conversation, and he ends up walking back up the stairs, and the woman says, yeah, I sent someone down to find you because you've been gone ages. And he's gone into like this parallel world in this subway, and then come back out again into the current timeline. It's bizarre. Where does this stuff come from, you know?
Well, what I find fascinating, going back to that story from Strange But True, is that the fact that they didn't just experience a time step, clearly it was very solid.
Yeah.
So,
they were sleeping on a bed.
They ate food.
They ate food. They were nourished.
Oh, they seem to eat food.
Well, they were nourished.
yeah.
So something physical must have passed down their throat, into their stomach to make them feel nourished. Unreal. I mean, how do you... This is not someone just seeing something.
It's living something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the idea of
drinking coffee in the morning, they're having breakfast, they're paying for it with money. Okay, it's
the fact that the money wouldn't have been reckoned. That was one of the things they spoke about in the report, is that he gave him 16 francs because that's what he asked for. Despite the fact that the money was there in notes as opposed to coinage,
the
person who they gave it to appeared not to...
unfazed.
No. So it's like how does that work?
It's crazy. It just goes to show how little we do know about the universe that we're in, you know. Or even the world that we're in, never mind the universe outside of that. But yeah, there's kind of time anomalies are fascinating. Whether it's Vartigas, whether it's deja vu, whether it's time slips. I mean, there's a very famous case, I can't remember now. It's the one of the fair. I'm sure it's in Britain, but it may be in France as well, where someone is travelling somewhere and they see a little local fair going on in a field. And
That rings a bell.
Yeah, and they walk around and they see some stalls and there's music playing and this, that, the other, and they have a good time and they leave. And apparently there's not been a fair there
for 100 years.
Yeah. So crazy. What are these things, you know? But I think that's what makes the field of research so fascinating, is the fact that there are these wondrous things that happen to people who seem completely rational, normal people. And, you know, you want answers, and I'm sure that's why all of us do really what we do, unless we're looking to make a career for ourselves, you know, TV paranormal investigators, that it's the question that drives us, you know, it's that journey. And I think from looking back how I was 3 years ago when I first founded PIEM and now, is very similar to the belief that Harry Price, the investigator, had until just before he died, in that the more he investigated the paranormal, the less he believed it was paranormal. Yeah, and I think that, you know, the more that you understand about the environment and what's going on and how people's mind work, the less it becomes about ghosts, and the more it becomes explainable. Again, I think it's just physics we just don't understand yet.
So I hope you did enjoy that. I love debate. I love discussion. It's brilliant to get guys together, round table it, and just discuss something that's on the minds of something what we all experience on a very regular basis. And deja vu is certainly one of those. So I really hope you enjoyed that. Now we're going to be moving on slightly, and it'll be our last segment of the night. This is going to be the epic fail of the month, in my honest opinion. So what it is, I got an email, and the email was, the subject title was proof, big capital letters, proof. Now inside the mail, just bring it up here, and so I can read to you correctly. Inside it says, alien implant found inside Napoleon Bonaparte's exhumed body, and this cried from the message. This person absolutely and utterly believed this. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And they put some links in there. There was one to Ashtar Command. Not that I would believe anything that's on Ashtar Command. After all, they're the ones who claim to be talking to the Galactic Federation of Light, who are coming to us with ethereal spaceships, come to save the world. Always at the last moment, of course, they never show themselves. And there was another link to the Examiner newspaper. Now, I'll read the story to you, okay? I'll read the story, so it makes much more sense in a context, right? So, let's just bring the story up here. Right, so this is the link to the story. It goes, scientists examining the remains of Napoleon Bonaparte are deeply puzzled by the discovery of a half-inch long microchip embedded in Napoleon Bonaparte's skull. Ooh, scary. So, the mysterious object could be an alien implant, says scientists. The possible ramifications of this discovery are too enormous to comprehend, declared Dr. André Dubius, who made this astonishing revelation in a French medical journal this past week. Until now, every indication that the victims of alien abductions were normal people who play no part in world events. Now we have compelling evidence that extraterrestrials acted in the past to influence human history and are continuing to do so. Dr. Dubius made the amazing find while studying Napoleon Bonaparte's exhumed body on a $140,000 grant from the French government. 140,000 euros, to apologise. I was hoping to learn whether he suffered a pituitary disorder that contributed to his small stature, he explained. But I insisted the researcher found something far more interesting. I found this in the interior of his skull as my hand brushed past a tiny protrusion. I looked at it under a tiny microscope, and I found that it was some kind of microchip. And from the extent of the bone growth around the chip, the expert believes it must have been planted when Bonaparte was very young. So it sounds kind of interesting, right? So Napoleon vanished from sight for a period of 7 days in July 1794 when he was 25. He claims also to have been a prisoner in a Thermodian coup. However, no record of that arrest ever exists. And he believes this is when the abduction took place. Because from that point onwards, Napoleon's rise actually went through quite a meteoric rise. Actually, by the next year, he was actually in charge of the French army in Italy. So yeah, he literally went from being nobody to being somebody, right? So in 1804, he started. There was a load of victories that he had, and the pint-sized general crowned himself Emperor of France, and his empire soon included what is now known as Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and Denmark. Now, the question is, what's the punchline, right? What's the punchline? The punchline is, this was put forward as proof. It's on the Examiner. It's on #command. And this person is absolutely adamant this is their belief. However, nothing more than a couple of quick searches into Google and DuckDuckGo will show you that this in fact was a satire article published in 2010 on World Weekly News. You know, World Weekly News, of course, is infamously, they literally write satire news all the time. News stories that look real but are not. And the Dubious, of course, it'd probably be the most standout moment of that. It's a bit like The Onion. World Weekly News, in fact, was actually featured in the Men in Black movie. Do you remember the first one when Tommy Lee Jones goes over to the newsstand and goes, well, World Weekly News, it's the place for the best stories because they usually tell the truth. Well, clearly, it's satire. No. World Weekly News, it's fun, it's satire. And this person who cried proof, absolute fail, is nothing more than a fake story. The fact that this story has actually been kind of going viral on Facebook as well, you know, but it's from 3 years ago. Anyway, this is me, Kristian Lander, signing off for Rabbit Hole That Is Reality. We hope you enjoyed episode 9 tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget, visit us on the web at www.rabbitholethatisreality.co.uk. Find us on iTunes, find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, and find me on Twitter at DefineChristian. So, until next time.